Welcome back, class, for this fourth section. We're going to talk about a little about the history of strategy and strategic management, and we're going to start it out talking about military history, because strategy actually has its roots in warfare. The Greek verb strategos is, implies army leader. Stratego is defeating an enemy by effectively using resources. So, Greek, the ancient Greek is driving a lot of the current nomenclature that we see in today's, especially economic and financial world. Machiavelli's 1532 book, The Prince, uh, devious suggestions, Machiavellian acts of deceit and manipulation. Again, deceit and manipulation. Think about one of the five P's. You're talking about ploy or ploys. So, Machiavellian type of textbooks drive some of those concepts. The Revolutionary War, think about the United States, kind of a ragtag bunch of volunteers, and they used non traditional strategies. And they also had strategic alliances with the French navies, and they used those two, coupling those two together, they used it to defeat the British, which was a much more powerful army at that time than anything the United States could put on the field. Civil War was resource driven. Can't overcome a stronger adversary with good strategy. And that's what I think most people would agree that the Confederacy had, when it came to strategy and military leaders, had by far the better military leaders, but they couldn't overcome the, I guess, the inequitable aspect of the resources that where the North just had a greater access to the resources and thereby had a resource advantage when it came to winning the war. World War II, D-Day invasion was a ploy. Again, we talked about it earlier. Fed the German army one set of misinformation, and they attacked, or they landed in France in a different position, and they were able through D-Day to take control of the war. Strategic management as a field of study, as a discipline, it's only been in the last, part of the last century. And we also talk about Sun Tzu when we talk about the art of war. And, he's, I guess, credited with strategic management as part art, part science. You also had Frederick W. Taylor, whose Principles of Scientific Management again was art of war at one time in graduate schools and many universities. It was required reading. Frederick W. Taylor, Mary Parker Follett, all of those researchers. And when we talk about those researchers, they were kind of in their heyday in the early part of the 20th century. So in the early 1900s. I'd say up to maybe 1940. That was kind of what their heyday was, and they were they were on the cutting edge of strategic management, especially in the factory setting, and kind of the scientific aspect of strategic management. You can trace back to approximately 1911, and when you talk about especially Frederick W. Taylor and Mary Parker Follett, they were tasked with then organizations were haphazard. Scientific investigation could drive efficiencies and identify, and especially Frederick W. Taylor, he had tried to identify one best way, find that one best way, and you can maximize organizational performance. What we're finding later on and in the 20th century and all into this 21st century, there may be more than one best way. But at the time, Taylor, as he put forth his book on strategic management, he was focused on one best way, and it served him extremely well, and it served firms at that time extremely well. And in the 1920s, we started on the strategic management, I guess, track you started introducing franchising, and I guess it was A&W Root Beer had the first franchise, and at least according to the text, 1920 or in the 1920s. That was um, a little nugget that I hadn't heard of before. And an organization called a franchisor, grants the right to use its brand name, products, and processes to other organizations known as the franchisees in exchange for an upfront payment, the franchise fee, and a percentage of franchisees' revenues considered a royalty fee. And you think about all the franchisees that are out there now. McDonald's is one of the big ones. McDonald's, Burger King, um, Pizza Hut, um, a lot of franchises out there that we're all familiar with. Um, and you think of um, not only McDonald's, but Subway is a huge competitor now in McDonald's. Unfortunately, they had that, can't even remember his name, but they had the dude that was their spokesman for a while, and he had lost, I don't know, a bazillion pounds by eating nothing but Subway sandwiches, day in and day out. And he was really pushing Subway as a healthy option and helped you lose weight. And he was a great spokesperson for Subway until he got caught, that child pornography, sting um, process, and that kind of put a damper on Subway. And Subway had a hard time coming back from that, but it looks like they have come back from it, and they may be stronger than ever. Um, and in some areas, I've been to Subway, and in Buffalo, there were probably three Subway franchises in downtown Buffalo. One of them was really good, and the other two you just didn't want to go in. And it was the way the franchises were managed. The two you didn't want to go in, the bread was always stale, and it was just not a pleasant experience. But now you've got you've got Jersey Mike's, you've got Firehouse Subs, you've got, I don't know, there's several of these kind of sub shops, and now you've got some competition with Subway, but Subway's still kind of the leader of the pack in those of types of franchises. Um, when we're talking about, and then also in the Ford Foundation, 1956, they had a capstone class to assist students to view multiple options in maximizing profits. So in 1956, you're starting to see the development of strategic management as a discipline within the academic world. Michael Porter, Harvard professor, he was one of the driving forces of strategic management. You've got things about that. He was talking about cases within strategic management. The book talks about online sales and books, and Amazon started in online sales and books, and they outmaneuvered Sears and J.C. Penney's when it came to retail sales. And you've got then you've got Amazon on the positive side. On the negative side, when they started talking about ethics, has been along an issue within the strategic management field. And think about a few years ago, Enron and Tyco, and things that those CEOs and senior management teams were doing that really gave a black eye to a lot of industries and a lot of firms in those industries. And so ethics and a lot of schools, business ethics, if you're in the finance field or the business field, business ethics is a required course. And you talk about Thomas Friedman in 2005, The World is Flat, A Brief History of the 21st Century. And companies need to improve strategies if they want to remain competitive. And that was kind of what Thomas Friedman was pitching at that time. And then we're going to, I think, wrap this piece up with understanding the strategic management process. And a strategic management process, there's understanding strategy and performance. There's the environmental and internal scanning. Uh, there's the strategy formulation, and then there's the strategy implementation. And to me, they leave out a piece. It's not just the strategy implementation. It's managing and evaluating and monitoring that strategy as it moves forward once you've implemented it. So sometimes academics, as they're writing these textbooks and papers, um, they get things right up to a point, and then they, I don't want to say they drop the ball, but they tend to leave out some um, opportunities for improvement, and they leave out the part in strategic management about who's going to be tasked with managing this thing once it's implemented. Understanding strategy and performance, it's, as we said before, it's an art and a science. There's multiple conceptualizations from history, how leaders understand and interpret their company's performance. And again, I've worked with companies where I don't want to say the leaders have been out in left field, but I've worked for companies in the past where it was really difficult to understand what the leaders, kind of what their mission and vision and culture was. They seemed to be all over the board, or they seemed to not have a clear understanding of where they wanted to take the company. And because they didn't have a clear understanding where they wanted to take the company, it was difficult for those of us in the company to get our arms around where we needed to be assisting them as a follower. So you've got leaders and followers, where we could assist them as a follower as we tried to take the company forward. And if you don't understand the vision, the mission, the vision, and the culture of a company, it's extremely difficult to develop a strategic plan and get involved in strategic management as you try, not only in the short run, but in the long run, to move a company forward. And then the second piece, environmental and internal scanning, you need to scan for trends, events, changes in the economy, industry specific environment. And as a leader, or as an individual in the strategic management, and a lot of companies have a strategic management function or strategic management department, or a strategy and management department, depending on what kind of industry it's in, and how they want to phrase the concepts. But those individuals, where they're providing competitive advantage and trying to mold and bring strategic management together, they have to understand trends and events and what the potential shocks to the market are. It is a very stressful position in a company, because there is a lot riding on that individual or those individuals' ability to understand the art and the science as it's tied together on strategic management. Again, they're trying to evaluate internal resources and expertise, and evaluate external and internal environment and resources. So when you're in that kind of scanning function or scanning component of strategic management, you're not only looking at what the internal trends are of your company, but you're looking at the external trends in that market economy, and you're looking at the external trends of your competitors. Strategy formulation. Here we come to the formulation piece of it. So, you've kind of gotten an understanding. You've kind of done your scanning. You think you have an idea of, and you think you have the information and an idea of where you need to go, or where you need your functional area to go. And now you're going to put together the strategy and the formulation. And so you're developing specific strategies and actions. You select business level strategies to increase probability of success. So you want the business level strategies in place that's going to give you the greatest probability of success. You want to determine competitive and cooperative moves. And I go back to my time in Buffalo that certain health plans, in an attempt to corner the market of healthcare in Buffalo, would develop strategic alliances with either Mercy or Kaleida. And it's kind of like going to the races. You were betting on, as a health plan, you were betting on if which was the highest probability of success. Was it the strategic alliance with Mercy or the strategic alliance with Kaleida? It was the same thing with Health Net in San Diego. You were betting on, was it Scripps or was it Sharp Healthcare that was going to be the winner when it came to hospital systems? So you as a individual developing this strategic vision, you're going to have to understand the information and have to understand how to pull that art and science together so that when you bet on a strategic alliance or a cooperative agreement with a competitor, either a competitor or a supplier, you're talking about, you're looking at vertical and horizontal integration, and things get really convoluted and somewhat confusing when you're trying to pull all those together. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to and have to be convinced in your ability to pull that art and science together so that you make the proper decision as you develop this strategy formulation. And so the last piece, at least according to the individuals that wrote the text, is strategy implementation. You have to craft an effective organizational structure and corporate structure, and you have a corporate governance is key, especially when it comes to ethics. My experience in most health plans is the strategic management function or the strategic plan has always been handed down like it came down on high, like like the 10 Commandments. You receive the 10 Commandments. This has been like it has, at least in healthcare. It's developed by a senior management team somewhere or the board of directors. So some combination of the senior management team and the board of directors have developed the mission, the vision, and the culture. And they have developed this strategic plan of how they view the health plan to move forward in the next 1, 3, 5 years. And then those of us in director or VP positions, so down the second run of management, we have functional areas that we've been responsible for. And it's our job to develop a strategic plan for our functional area that matches with the KPIs, the financial metrics, the customer service metrics, the operational metrics, and that you can tie it all together. Because at the end of the day, we're all joined at the hip when it comes to meeting financial, meeting operational goals, meeting customer service goals. And so it's extremely important that those of us in this VP director level understand the information that's being cascaded down from on high from senior management. Here's their mission, vision, culture, or at least their approach of culture. And then it's up to us in this next run. And, my guess is some of you may already be in this VP director level run, or maybe even be down in the manager run. But it's up to us to formulate a strategic plan that matches with the high level organizational strategic plan. And it's also up to us to implement that plan, and it's up to us to manage that plan going forward. And again, I think the authors miss a little by not putting kind of a fifth step in there, is who's actually going to, you implement it, but who's going to execute it, who's going to operationalize it, who's going to manage it going forward, and who's going to ensure that all of the KPIs and the respective metrics are met as we move forward as as a functional area within this organization. So I'll get off my soapbox at this point, and we're going to wind this chapter up. And the next time we get together, we'll jump into chapter 2. Thank you.